Jonathan Yeo, you are thinking, I thought I had this great portrait of the king ready to present to the world. And what has the world said in response?
This is the portrait of King Charles III by Jonathan Yeo, and it's been all over the internet for the last couple of days.
And before we show you some of the mockery that's been done of this, just look at the picture itself. It's that sense that the king has somehow merged into his own background velour. And what we have is just Charlie's face and hands.
He actually asked for the butterfly to be in the portrait, I believe. So it's like he's come out of his cocoon and he's now flying like a butterfly, spreading his wings. But
Yes.
I personally really like it. I think it's really, really nice. I really think it's a beautiful portrait.
Because
I think that makes us two of two people who like this portrait, Eamon. You and I. I like it too, but I agree. The red is like slightly problematic for all things colonial, and the fading in is like, is this a statement on the monarchy and the state of the monarchy? Who knows?
But the butterfly, what is this? Like the most pampered fail son of them all is like, now I get to come out of my cocoon now that mommy's dead. Where have you been for the last 70 years? Come on.
Oh dear. Now. Okay, right. Let's move to the next piece. Right. So this is the first iteration that we're going to share. Are we ready? Okay. So are you seeing what I'm seeing?
That's a rhubarb pie.
This is a rhubarb pie with the beautiful red tones that are just embedded in that stunning rhubarb coulis. I think it looks only delicious, don't you think?
I think the matching of tone, the matching of color, it's wonderful. What I'm amazed at is this painter spent 2 years giving us these tones. And I'm sorry, but I just think maybe a little more contrast next time, my friend.
Definitely. What do you think, Maria?
Oh, again, I'm kind of a sucker for that sort of thing. So I like the fading thing. I like the portrait. I think the whole, taking the piss all through. Everybody's talking about it. It's memeified. It's been well and truly rhubarbed.
This new installation that was installed in Ireland and in New York. Let me show you some imagery.
Now, Lucy, when you think of Portal, what do you think of?
Well, not that anymore. I mean, it's fabulous, but really, to put it where they put it, they were asking for trouble. It should have been in a nice grassy knoll near Westport somewhere.
I don't think it would have mattered where
really
you
funny.
put it. But people,
And it's hysterical. I love it.
the artist has said he was expecting to bring out like the best of people. Like, what world are you living in? Anything you put in public, at least in the United States, is going to be defaced any way it possibly can within seconds. So why would you expect people not to start mooning the other half of the world if they're given the opportunity, right? Like,
I probably would.
I think you make a good point, though, Lucy. Like, why did they not put it in, like, Ireland is such a beautiful place with so many wonderful places to go to that are in, like, the more rural areas with the more, like, the stunning landscapes and everything, and where there would be still people, like, walking and, having adventures too, and yet you just put it into the centre of Dublin City, and, like, that's just, maybe it's just city to city, but, like, I just don't understand why everything always has to be in that built-up zone. So, I mean, this portal, there was this image, which was so welcoming and lovely, and you can see, oh, hello, look, and it's like, we love Dublin, and everybody's like, throwing us back to Fáilte go dtí, yeah. And now, then it transitions to this. And, I mean, what exactly did they expect? I mean,
I bloody love it. I just think it's the best.
Like, and certainly not even the most profane of the images that I found on the internet when I was doing some research on this. There are some very explicit images that were sent through, and I suppose that's why it was shut down.
a typical New York subway has the range of humanity doing the range of things. So why you would expect putting a portal in the midst of public space in New York would not give you the equivalent of this every time, everywhere. I think the artist was just hoping for something that doesn't exist in humanity, which is that art will somehow create people to become something they're not. This is who people are. This is exactly who people are.
these paintings are being collected, I think, by old staff members I read, who have found them in the dump when they did some refurbs and have been seen on eBay for $10,000.
I wish somebody would do that with mine.
But these are not even the originals. But part of what adds to the complexity of this is these are just prints. These are not the originals. And so people think they're like finding this great art find. And I guess it's all in the eye of the, right? If you want it badly enough, you'll pay for it.
Absolutely.
Get some people to steal some of your stuff, Janine.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, it'd be interesting if you actually put your stuff out there as a different person and tried to create your own market for yourself. Who knows?
Absolutely. What sort of artwork is this?
Well, apparently it's done in the style of Maxfield Parrish. Originals are in apparently the Taco Bell corporate offices, and the prints have shown up all over, obviously, Taco Bells themselves. And like I say, they go for a lot of money on the secondary market, so it's kind of spawned a bit of a, can I steal this? Can I find this in the trash when they redecorate kind of thing. So we come to the art provocateur, the art jester, Mauricio Cattelan, and the ongoing controversy, both as usual with the actual work itself and the kind of wider ripple in the art world which he makes. And I think that's, if you're an art provocateur, that's kind of the point, right? You want people not just to pay attention to the art, but to pay attention to you, because if you're on people's lips, then you're on their minds, and perhaps you'll also be in their wallets and purses and those kinds of things. And so Cattelan, you may know him. He's the guy who had the banana that was duct taped to the wall, which sold for a couple $100,000. Another version of which someone plucked off the wall at an art fair earlier this year and just ate the banana again, not even realizing that it was part of the art project. He has famously had a gold toilet that was installed. So the current project is having 3 of his assistants using handguns and shotguns and shooting into large metal gold-plated plates. And so then it's like, I would say probably 100 of those plates that are lined up on the wall to create this huge kind of golden, almost Trump-esque kind of installation.
Cool, let's have a look. So here we have Mauricio's Cattelan's installation piece that Josh so eloquently described. It is humongous and it takes up the entire space. Wow, is it impactful? What are you taking from this, Maria? What is your, do you know much about this work, about this controversy, or the controversy we were about to kind of unravel?
Well, so Anthony James, who has been making work in this way for many decades, has a piece very close by. And if you pop it on screen, you can see it's also panels that happen to be, I don't know if they're aluminum silver, but it's in contrast in silver. And you can see the pock marks of the gunshots. But he's been gunshotting metal for a very long time and claims that Cattelan must have seen his work and has, of course, pirated in some way. So a lot of questions here.
Those are chrome steel that Anthony James does. But you can see his install. He has these like infinity mirrors that go with it, right? It's a very different kind of aesthetic than what Cattelan is doing. And yeah, the real kind of controversy in the art world is the fact that they're geographically very close to each other, like a stone's throw essentially. And Cattelan claims he knows nothing about this. And I mean, if you look at the way he does it, like a lot of his work works with gold, and it's about kind of the impactfulness of exactly value and playing with value in ways that the other artist, I think, is doing something different. And to me, honestly, I think that the other artist who's working in the chrome, it reads more like something out of the 80s. Like I expect there to be, half naked women and Porsches in how some of that kind of layout is. And I don't have anything, like, I don't really care about Cattelan. It's funny how he kind of pokes fun at things, but his install is very much more like a large, I am gold, I am. And each of those panels, there's got to be like 100 of them. They're each already pre-sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars because of who he is, right? Like, that's his name, that's the piece, come by me.
Madonna, the queen of pop. Madonna was in Mexico recently. What was she doing in Mexico, Josh?
She was going to visit Frida Kahlo, and well, at least Frida Kahlo's
clothes and belongings. And this created a bit of a controversy because the folks in Mexico believed that she was doing so at the actual Museo Frida Kahlo. There's an actual museum, right? She's considered to be a sort of national heroine. The artwork she did is considered to be national treasures. So there's an actual national museum for all of this. And when the pictures got out of Madonna wearing some of Kahlo's clothes and like putting on some of her jewelry or something, there was this huge outcry about how could this be allowed to happen, that no one who was Mexican would be allowed to do this. And then, of course, it works out to be like 12 hours later, by the way, this was actually done someplace else. It was actually the family. The family has their own belongings that belong to her. This happens all the time. What ends up in the museum is different than what currently exists in terms of extant. So Madonna was actually at the family's house and was like literally going through the drawers of her clothes. She was not like violating the sanctity of the National Museum.
That you work a lot with textiles, so given the fact that she is wearing a lot of her clothing and whatever, what are your feelings on this?
From a conservation standpoint, probably not a good idea. I don't know how the family keeps the clothes, but to me, this was clearly an Instagram moment because she had her fingernails painted with Frida Kahlo's, image or something similar to it. So it was done specifically for kind of the gram.
So, some people, I'm sure, are aware of Damien Hirst's notoriety going back now multiple decades, right? And last year, he had gotten himself into some trouble with backdating some of his larger sculptural pieces that he's done in formaldehyde. And now he's gotten himself in trouble again by backdating more than 1,000 works. Not just backdating, but also definitively done by his assistants several years after the dates that are going on to the pieces.
I think what's amazing, firstly, is the scale and the vast amount of these. There's 10,000 of these paintings that were produced. I think most of them now are sold as NFTs or are distributed as NFTs. Am I right in saying that, Josh?
So this was part of a project where you had a choice. It was originally produced as a physical object and then converted over into an NFT. And when you bought it for $2,000 a piece, you had a choice. You could either get the NFT or you could get the physical, but you could not have both. And what he then did was literally incinerated any of the physical copies that people had converted to NFTs. But this is Damien burning many of those 1,000-odd pieces.
And it's interesting how that has become almost an installation piece in itself, and how he has burnt the pieces and made that almost ceremonial.
Does anyone doubt Damien Hirst's ability for spectacle and performance? I don't think anyone has that doubt at this point in time. The real controversy is, wait, not only did my assistants do this work, but they did it several years after the work is actually dated. So there's a real screw up with the timeline here, and one could argue that's what he wants too, because it just creates more controversy and creates more buzz.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a real soft spot for Damien Hirst. To me, he can do no wrong. And I think that, doing this is just more publicity because everything he does creates a stir, and this is just another thing, and I think it's great.
Well, if what you're interested in is ending up on the auction block, right, then you want to create as much buzz as possible for the kind of people that are going to go to those auctions and spend money. And if I have a choice between an artist that constantly makes buzz and an artist that doesn't, well, I'm going to get a higher return on my investment if I invest in the artist that's making that buzz. And that's Hirst. Boom, boom, boom.
Absolutely.
Talking about a street artist, right? Where the originals, people literally will chip out of walls. They will try to remove parts of buildings because that's where the work shows up out in the real world. And obviously, it's like it kind of harkens back to Basquiat back in the early 80s. He would do work on doors, people would steal the doors, right? Banksy does work on all kinds of surfaces. So there's not a lot of sort of authorized Banksy repros that are out there. But it's Banksy universe. Right? So it's like Banksy goes to Disney, which, if you know Banksy's work, is absolutely the opposite of what he typically would be interested in doing. And certainly from the size of it, it's described tens of thousands of feet of just like an immersive experience, kind of like the Van Gogh experience. But obviously with Banksy, it's not with lights and like projected onto the roof of things. You're walking through it and seeing the artwork.
I think what's really interesting about Banksy is you don't know if he's actually authorizing it or not because he's so mysterious that who knows? I mean, who knows if they're taking advantage of him, putting it out there? I don't know. And should it be in a museum? Probably not, without his authorization.
I don't know whether it is or not. I think it's this question of like if you're a creator who normally puts stuff out in the streets, like mosaics done
Yeah.
by Invader, right, are a classic example of this. The minute you take them off, half of the power of it being put up there where no one
Sure.
knows who the person is, and it's an inaccessible location, and yet it's there, right? It's this like Kilroy was here statement to the world about art. The minute you start to like load that stuff into an institution, like obviously it has removed a lot of the force. But Banksy's going to die at some point. Whoever takes over as pest control, they too will, like the works. Part of what you do as a maker is you make shit and you put it out into the world, and then the world decides what it wants to do with it. So
Well, yeah, people are covering it up. I've noticed in different places with glass and things so that it can't be sprayed over. Because I think, one of the things about street art is that people tag over each other's work. So, it's interesting that they haven't done it to Banksy.
But the way you show respect as a street artist to other artists who are you consider your antecedents is you don't touch their work.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why there are Basquiat pieces that were done as Samo that are still up, it's just a signature with a TM, right? Like it's not a big tag or anything, but it has been left alone now for more than 40 years by all the other writers, all the other muralists who absolutely, like it's a wall. You can paint over that very easily.
Especially now that street art is being commissioned, as much as it is put on the walls by artists as a, not necessarily as a vandalism, but as a space of like making a point. And, a lot of Banksy's work is controversial. It is making a social statement on something. But there are a lot of commissioned street artworks that are happening. I see that especially in Ireland and in the UK, where there is a lot of artworks that are going up on the side of dormant walls that look ugly, or in areas that are just, they're run down and they need a bit of color. And this is a way to overcome that. But I suppose there's a question then, will that work be painted over, or what is where does the kind of line shift there? Can they get a big roll of emulsion paint and just to cover over the work that was commissioned, versus something that was put over to make a statement?